Hi friends, welcome to another video. Welcome to my March reading wrap up. Now I'm really excited about filming this video, not only because I read a lot of great books this month, so I'm excited to talk about them, but also this video marks the first full circle moment of this channel, because the first video I ever uploaded was my March reading wrap up in 2021. Now this is my March reading wrap up in 2022, so obviously this is a sweet moment. Let's take a second to appreciate that. Okay, perfect, let's go. If you watched my February reading wrap up, you know that February was not a good reading month for me at all. I did not read a lot. Plus, I was not super hyped and excited about the things that I did read. So yeah, overall, February was not for me, but March was great. You will be able to see I did read a lot this month. Now, first of all, what I did at the beginning of the month. This ties back to what I just said about like February not being a good reading month. That was partly because I had been spending so much time with certain books. I had been reading them since like the early January or like mid-January already, that I had grown kind of sick of them. And that's why I kept dragging them with me all throughout February, not really reading them a lot and not being happy about still reading them kind of. But then at the same time, I also didn't want to just DNF them. So at the beginning of March, I took the time to sit my booty down and finally finish these books and like get them out of the way. Now, which books am I talking about? I'm talking about DUNE, the third part. Fucking finally finished this. I did not enjoy this. This just like took me way too long. Way too little happens in it. I did not really like any of the characters anymore. As of right now, I'm not planning on continuing the series because this last part, like the third part, really put me off. I did not enjoy reading this at all. I also finished The Occasional Virgin. Now this, I didn't read this over such a long time, but it was like also one of the ones that I still had to finish kind of like before I wanted to move on to fresh reads in March. So I quickly finished this, enjoyed it. I'm talking about it in my February reading wrap up, so if you want to hear more about it, check out this other video. And then I also finally finished my Agatha Christie biography. Now obviously I really enjoyed this. I really loved reading about her life and everything, but you see, this is a mammoth of a book. It had been a while that I started this book, and I don't know, like if it's been too long, too much time that I've been spending with the book, like if it's taking me too long to read it because it's just so big, I start getting kind of like annoyed by it, even if I enjoy it. So I don't know, at the beginning of the month, I just like took some time and finally finished this, and I'm super happy about it. Okay, so now let's move on to the new books that I started and finished this month. The first book that I picked up was Seoulmates by Jen Frederick. This is more or less so a book recommendation by Jenny from Blackpink. I talk about it in this video, so you can check it out. Now, as you can tell by the cover, I suppose, this is a romance story taking place in Seoul. It's actually the second part of a duology, and I did not read the first part, but trust me, you will not struggle with that at all if you also decide on picking up the second part instead of the first part. It's about our girl Hara, and she's living in Seoul, and she has like her usual struggles like at her job. She's not getting along with the people there. Plus she has like some romantic struggles because she actually apparently in the first part she did end up with the guy she loves, but turns out that guy is her stepbrother. Now that's of course super awkward and everyone's against that relationship. So this book is kind of like about them sticking together whilst everyone is kind of like against them and stuff like that, and just like her usual everyday life in Seoul. It was a cute romance. Honestly, I actually really enjoyed this. I read this within the span of like 2 days or something. You get through this super quickly. I like the characters. I enjoyed the setting, it taking place in Seoul and all of that. I like the Korean food description. So overall, it was a fun read. What can I say? Moving on to the second book I picked up this month, A Lesson in Vengeance. Now this, I really enjoyed this one. So what this book is about, like our protagonist Felicity, she goes back to school after having taken a semester, like half a year or like whatever off, because we learned that apparently half a year ago, or was it a year ago? Oh, sorry, her best friend died, and so she took some time off because she had to cope with that, and now she's coming back to school. And in the process of the book, we get to learn more and more what really happened to her friend back then, and about some sinister stuff that was going on. At the same time, as we learn more and more about what happened, we also kind of see history repeating itself with new friends that Felicity makes while she's coming back to school. Furthermore, Felicity, she's really obsessed with like the history of her school, because the founding mother of her school was rumored to be a witch. And a couple of centuries ago, there were like all these girls that were also thought to be witches and they died, and she's like super obsessed with this story. She keeps like reading about them, thinking about them, and also like dabbling into the fields of doing like seances and stuff like that. So like another part of this book was that the entire time I was not sure like which genre this belonged to. Like I didn't know if this would turn into a fantasy novel, like with some of this like witchy stuff start being part of her actual reality, or is she just like really into it and like imagining some stuff, or is like some paranormal stuff actually happening. So I never knew whether it would turn into a book like that or not, and I don't think I should spoil it for you right here. And then it also has like a murder mystery aspect of it. I don't know, I really enjoyed this book. I think it must be my favorite dark academia. Yeah, I would say that. The next book I read is kind of like a TikTok super popular famous book, and that is Verity by Colleen Hoover. Now I have heard a lot about this author, especially on Ava Jewell's channel. She is like the one person I watch on the internet that I think she basically exclusively reads novels by Colleen Hoover now. At least that's what it looks like in her videos. Like she's always talking about some of her books. But I also heard about this book in particular in some other videos, because this was like one of the most TikTok hype books that a lot of people read it. So I kept hearing about this. Now this book is about a super popular author called Verity. She has a car accident though, and is not in the position to finish this super popular series that she has been writing. So her publishers and her husband, they reach out to our main protagonist. Her name is Lowen, and she's also an author, and they reach out to her because they want her to finish the series for Verity, because she's not in the position to do that anymore. So Lowen, she moves in with the super hot husband, and Verity, she's still like living in the house, but she's not in a coma, but she's not receptive to like, she can't talk with people or like react to people or anything, but she's still staying in the house with them as well. So Lowen moves in with them and like starts to go through Verity's notes and everything to start writing the series, and super sinister stuff comes up and it gets really freaky. The more she dives into Verity's notes, the more she finds out what a psychotic woman she was, and of course she's still in the same house with her, so Lowen gets super freaked out. At the same time, yes, the super hot husband is also in the house, so you tell me what happens there. And the story continues basically. Now, as a thriller, this book did a good job, I would say. It was thrilling and suspenseful, and you kept reading and reading because you wanted to know like what the next twist and turn was gonna be, and what would happen next, and because you wanted to find out what's like actually going on, and like, oh my god, is this Verity like a complete psychopath, etc. So that definitely kept you going. What is another major part of this book though, and none of the book reviews I watched on this mentioned that, is that, okay, yes, first and foremost, I guess the genre of this book would be thriller, but secondly, this reads like literary porn. I stopped counting at one point the number of sex scenes in this movie, but honestly, without exaggerating, every few pages there's another very detailed, very graphic sex scene. So just be prepared for that, I would say, because none of these other book reviews, they mentioned that. So I did not necessarily know this heading into this, and it was just like such a dominant part, and sex scenes kept coming up and coming up and coming up. There was like, oh wow, this really is like a major part of this novel. And actually, I was reading this while I was in London for a couple of days this month, and I was out and about the entire time, like on the tube, on the bus, in the museum, in a cafe, and I was always like reading while I was on the way or like sitting down somewhere. So I was like always in a public setting. And there's just something so weird about reading really like detailed and graphic sex scenes in public with like tons of people around. It was a really odd experience, because like I was just reading there like, oh, okay. But like all these other people were around me, you know, it was funny. It was funny for sure. Should I now ever see someone reading this book somewhere, I would totally be like, I know you're reading a sex scene right now. Because no matter at which point in the book this person would be in that moment, a sex scene could not be far from what they're reading right now. So that was just like a funny part. Like I sometimes like kept expecting like, okay, when I'm looking up now, are there gonna be some knowing glances? But there weren't actually, but I'm for sure gonna be handing them out should I ever see someone reading this book. But the thing is, yes, sex is such a dominant part of this story, or like of this book in general. But the thing is, I did not like the way Colleen Hoover talked about sex and like used sex in the novel, and maybe like also wrote her sex scenes per se. So I couldn't even be like, you enjoy that sex scene you're reading right now, because personally I did not enjoy it in that sense. She wrote sex scenes in a way that I personally do not enjoy, the way she, as I just said, like also used sex in the story to kind of like characterize the protagonist. It wasn't for me. So I don't know, there you go. If you want to read a thriller with a lot of sex in it, this one's for you for sure. But if the particular style she talks about sex is for you, I cannot judge, obviously. That's you're gonna have to see for yourself, but there you go. Now another book, I actually got this while I was in London, and did I already finish it there? No, I finished it when I was back at home. Was Ace of Spades by Faridah Àbíké-Íyímídé. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but I did give it a shot. This one came in as a surprise for sure, because this was another book that I had heard a lot about, but the main thing that I had heard about this book was, yeah, it's kind of like Gossip Girl-y, because there's this anonymous person sending out these messages and like starting rumors and all of that. That's what I knew about this book heading into it. And granted, it is an aspect of it, because yes, part of this book is that this anonymous person starts spreading rumors, or like not rumors, but starts releasing information about certain people. But that's exactly where the parallels end. I think it's actually like a really bad comparison, because I headed into this book being like, okay, it's kind of like Gossip Girl-y, so like taking place in high school, and it's like, ooh, who's sleeping with who, etc. And it's gonna be like about stuff like that, just like teenagers doing their thing, thinking that teenage life in high school is everything that exists, blah blah blah. And actually, because that was the only thing I had heard about the book, for a long time I didn't want to pick it up. But believe me, this is not at all what you should be thinking this book is about. Because the thing is, this anonymous person that's spreading all this information is targeting 2 people at this private academy only. And it just so happens that these 2 people are the only 2 Black students in the entire student body. Now, you tell me, is that a coincidence or not? I can save you the trouble, it is not. This book is about how these 2 students, Devin and Chiamaka, get horrifically and heinously targeted by this anonymous person and having their private lives revealed to everyone at their school. And yes, it becomes more and more clear throughout the story that the reason for all of that is not some private reason, like a past ex-boyfriend is doing that now because he's mad at her because she broke up with him or something like that. No, it's all about racism. So in other words, the underlying theme of this book is really, really dark per se, as it describes how these 2 innocent students are being so horrifically targeted on account of their race. And then of course the book is also about like how they cope with it, how they try to take countermeasures, how they also team up, because actually Devin and Chiamaka, they have nothing in common other than the color of their skin. They are not friends, they're not really associated with one another, because she is like this popular rich girl at school. Actually, that's what she used to be, at least, whereas he's kind of like one of the loser characters, one of the outsiders. His family's also like financially struggling really hard, which makes him the odd one out in this private academy where everyone is swimming in money. But obviously, as they notice that they are the only 2 people that are getting targeted by this anonymous person, they team up and they try to fight it. And they also, of course, try to figure out who is behind all of this. So this kind of like mystery element is also part of this book, as they try to find out the identity of the person that is doing this. And it turns into something bigger and bigger with each step they're taking. So yeah, describing this as kind of like a Gossip Girly book, I think completely misses what this book is actually about. So yeah, on all accounts, this book was way more than I expected, and I did really enjoy the experience of reading it. And if anything from this video, I want you to go away with the information that this is not just your Gossip Girl kind of novel, but way more than that. Okay, next up I read The Village of 8 Graves by Seishi, a Japanese murder mystery. I actually gave this a shot and tried to solve it as I was reading it. Video up here and down below. It went, I can't spoil it, but I mean, you might see the sneaky smirk on my face, so it did go pretty well. I mean, I also enjoyed the experience of like trying to solve murder mysteries, even if I do not get it right at the end, but getting it right, or at least getting certain stuff, right, of course, makes it kind of like even more fun. So I had a really good time with this. There are a lot of deaths in this book, be prepared for that. But yeah, just check out this other video if you want to hear more about it. But honestly, I do love Seishi Kumizu's murder mysteries. I can't wait for the 4th one to get released this summer. Really looking forward to it. Then I did pick up another romance novel. Look at me. People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. Now, actually, I had planned on making a video about this, giving the video the title, Reading People We Meet on Vacation, while being on vacation with a person I met on vacation. And I have a very dear friend of mine, and I met her a few years ago while I was on vacation, or like while we were on vacation, at the same spot, and we met there, and ever since then we have been friends. And we had planned on traveling together this March actually, but then it didn't end up working out, sadly. And she had gotten this book like a few weeks or months before, and she told me about it. I was like, oh yeah, sure, I've heard a lot about it, blah blah blah. And then as we were planning this trip, I thought, okay, it would be so funny if we both read the same book. And of course, like the title at least of this book, it really relates to our situation as well, because we did meet on vacation, you know. So yeah, I had this fun idea of making this video with this funny title, even though the title would have been way too long. But sadly, it did not end up working out because we were not able to see each other. But I still ended up reading the book to at least get those vibes of this vision I had of our time together. Now, I suppose I don't really have to talk about the plot of this a whole lot, because so many people have read it, or you're sure to have already heard about it before. It's like a friends to lovers kind of book, but honestly, I did not enjoy this overly, because I did not really find myself liking or like connecting to either of the protagonists, like to either Poppy or Alex. I don't know, there was just like nothing there for me. I did not really click with them, and therefore just like wasn't that interested in their story. And like that's the thing with romance books, I feel like, because with like murder mysteries, say you don't like the character of the detective, you can still enjoy the book, the story, because there's something outside of that persona like going on in the book. There's a murder going on, and it's about solving what went on and like what happened, who the murderer is. You can still enjoy that part of the book, right? But like with, I'm not saying this is the case with all romance books, of course, but at least with this, it's like only about their characters and their relationship to one another. So if you don't like the two characters, you can't really like the book, because it is about nothing else than their relationship over the span of 12 years. You learn about like from the first time they met, and then each year they went on a vacation, and you get to know what happened, blah blah blah. I don't know. So yeah, because I didn't really like any of the characters, I did not have like an amazing time with it. I don't know, I felt pretty meh about it. But actually it set me off on like another train of thought that I had about romance books in general, and that is, don't romance books kind of like mess up our understanding of what romance is in real life? This is supposed to be a romance novel, right? But as I was reading it, I considered it to be more of a tragedy, because do you really want to tell me it is the great, perfect, happy ending if these two people finally end up together after 12 years, even though they have been in love with each other for at least 11 of those years, but they never manage to say something out loud, to communicate properly like adults? You want to tell me that's like a happy ending, that's a happy story, that's what a romance is supposed to look like? Really, to me, it felt more like a tragedy. Like you just wasted 12 years, or like at least 11 years of your life, because you didn't manage to kind of like pluck up the courage and like talk about what's actually going on here at some prior point, even though it was so painfully obvious to each and every one, of course, what was actually going on. And I feel like this trope, at least, this miscommunication, or like it wasn't even miscommunication, it was just like the complete lack of any communication between the two people involved. I feel like, first of all, that's part of almost every romance novel, even if it wasn't the main trope, as in this book. This like miscommunication, or like not communicating with the person you're in love with and telling them what's actually going on, it seems to be at least always a part of all these stories. And I think that's really tragic, because I think it is at least subconsciously signaling to the reader and like to us that that's oh yeah, that's how it's supposed to look like. Though, of course, you read these novels and you realize, okay, this is like miscommunication, that this is like not the right way to do it. And then only when they finally at some point end up talking about this, as in this book, only after 12 years, then finally the happy ending comes around and they do get together and everything, right? But I think it is at least presented that this phase of not communicating with each other, not being honest and open with each other, is presented as kind of like a necessary part of a relationship at some point. And I think per se that is really toxic. There should be more romance books about where it's just about two adult people being able to openly and freely and honestly communicate with one another, so that you don't end up wasting your time, their time, each other's time. Because I feel like that's what ends up happening every time you decide to not say something out loud, or like, oh no, I can't talk about him with that, or like, no, I should rather not say this or that. You end up making things worse. I don't know, I had this entire conversation with myself in my head about this topic. I think that would be really interesting to kind of like analyze a lot of the popular romance books out there as to this aspect, and like psychoanalyze it, because I don't think I'm reaching out too far with this one. I think romance novels, obviously also like movies, series, etc., they influence us badly in that aspect, as they portray it to be normal or just like an essential part of every relationship, that there's like this huge chunk of time where you do not really say what you feel out loud, and you're not really communicating, and you're always skirting around subjects instead of talking to one another. Honestly, tell me a problem that could not at least more easily, sooner, and everything be resolved if people just talk to one another. I know, I do get kind of frustrated even just thinking about it. So yeah, this is like a train of thought that this book started off in my head. So yeah, overall mediocre experience with this one. I wouldn't really recommend it per se, but there you go. Now about the last couple of books I'm going to talk about really quickly, because I want to talk about them in another video that's coming up soon. I read 3 books by Kazuo Ishiguro. First of all, Never Let Me Go, then An Artist of the Floating World, and right now I'm still reading When We Were Orphans. Actually, I'm not that far into this at all, but I have been planning on making a dedicated video to Kazuo Ishiguro's work for so long, and now I will be making a video within the next couple of days, I suppose. So I do not want to talk about these books a lot right here, right now, because I want to make this other dedicated video as to it. But there you go. If you watch this video, you already have kind of like a sneak peek of what will be coming up soon. Now, last but not least, this book, I have received several comments of people being like, oh, please definitely give this one a go. I really want to see you giving this one a chance, or like trying to figure it out. Kane's Jawbone. I am not yet done with this. I'm still going through it, making my notes and all of that. I will also be making a dedicated video about this. To be honest though, up until right now, it is not going that well. It's very frustrating to even get through it, and therefore also kind of annoying. It's, I mean, I will obviously be talking about it in this other video, but yeah, it's not going that great so far. And I already knew I would not be making like a video about this and just like solving it in 5 minutes, because it's gonna be oh so easy. Obviously not, but now, like, with every page I read, the more I'm getting annoyed and kind of like pissed at this book, the less I'm enjoying my experience with it. The video that I will be making about this, it's not gonna be your here's the solution you wanted all along. It's more gonna be me ranting about the book, how impossible and kind of like really not fun to even read or try to solve it is in reality. So I think it's gonna be more of a rant video than anything else, but obviously first I have to finish it and like gather the clues, try to come up with like some theory, or like try to contribute something to the mysterium of Kane's Jawbone. But yeah, I'm working on it, but honestly guys, I'm not really enjoying it. I'm trying, I'm giving it a shot, but honestly do not expect much. I'm not expecting much. Okay guys, so those were all the books I read in March. Wait, let me grab them. It doesn't even fit in the screen. Wait, oh my god. No. Okay, so those and the book that just fell down are all the books I read in March. I hope you enjoyed this reading wrap up. I know this turned into a super long video, but I mean, look at this. I did read a lot of books, so what did you expect? If you've made it up until this point of the video, congratulations and thank you so much for sticking around. I'm gonna see you in my next video. You already got some sneak peeks as to what will be coming up soon. And with that, I thank you for watching. I'm gonna see you next time. Bye!